2026 is going to be an awesome year. We got some pretty cool stuff coming up. First off, we got Foundations of Recovery. This is our flagship program. We're starting it in January.
This is for anyone, man, woman, or couple who wants to come and reclaim their heart from shame, trauma, and betrayal. We start off with an education on all sorts of principles, give you the common language. We feed you from a fire hose in terms of all things recovery.
It is such a great start to recovery. And we get at the roots of things, Tyler. This isn't like any other program. Like, this is our healing journey in process, and Foundations is where we begin.
If you look at the value that you're getting there to kick off a good recovery with all of the right education, all of the right language, and a team to get you started while also being directed by Brannon and myself through the whole process, what a deal.
So if you're interested, if you're struggling, if you've been wanting to do something for a long time, jump into this. This only comes around every so often, and we would love to have you there.
Click the link in the description to sign up for it. And to make it even sweeter, we're also including a raffle for a free pass to the Radiant Dawn retreat. Anyone who signs up for Foundations will be added to the raffle for that free Radiant Dawn pass. If you're a man and you sign up for Foundations, your name still gets entered, and you can give that pass away if you win it to any woman that you want to.
So what you're saying, Tyler, is if you sign up and participate in Foundations, you could possibly go to Radiant Dawn for free?
That's exactly what I'm saying, which is crazy because Foundations by itself is already an insane value.
Man, I sound so salesy. But it actually is awesome. So come to Foundations. And even if you don't come to Foundations, sign up for Radiant Dawn. It's beyond therapy, the best healing experiences that you can have.
Click the link below and come join us. A review of The Devil in the Family, the Ruby Franke story. Welcome to the Therapy Brothers podcast.
I'm Brannon.
I'm Tyler.
We're brothers.
We're therapists.
And we know recovery.
Bring your stories, your questions, your successes with real recovery.
Hey, Tyler, you ready to have some hard conversations?
Let's do it.
Let the Therapy Brothers podcast begin. What's up, Tyler?
Brannon, how you doing, man?
I'm doing really good, actually.
Glad to hear it.
It's been an interesting weekend.
Yeah, I imagine you've had a pretty big weekend.
Yeah, it's been really interesting. I've connected with a lot of old people and friends and things, and with the documentary coming out, there's just been a lot of people asking questions and wondering about things. So yeah, it's been good. But before we get into that, I do want to share a review if I can. And this review is all about how awesome you are, Tyler. So it's a good one. It says, "Thank you, Tyler, for your episode on integrity." The title of it is spot on. "Thank you, Tyler, for your episode on integrity. It really resonated with me because I am a small business owner and I have tried hard to build my business on integrity, honesty, and seeing the value in and worth in every person. This was a great reminder on how to live a meaningful life."
Awesome. Well, thank you. We love your reviews. Appreciate you taking the time out of your day to share those things. It's amazing how a simple, kind word goes a long way sometimes.
Yeah. Well, Tyler, you lay down good content and speak good truth, so love it. I gotta bow out more often.
No, you don't, man.
I need to bow out more often. So,
like I said, I keep a kind of a running tab with everybody who I know listens to this show, and I constantly am checking in on who's the better brother. And according to my statistics, it's unofficial, but according to my statistics, I'm usually behind by about a 40 to 60 rate.
Oh, that is not even true at all. Not even close. Yeah. So anyways.
Yeah. Well, let's jump into it today, Brannon. You, for people who don't know, I'm sure a lot of people do, because it sounds like you've been getting quite a bit of reach out from people from your past and people that you know and connections, but you were actually a part of a 3-part sort of docu-series that just barely came out this week called The Devil in the Family, the Ruby Franke story. And you had the idea that maybe you wanted to just speak to a few principles that were kind of brought up that would maybe be pertinent to our listeners.
Yeah, I think there's some things in that story that are really fascinating. to dissect, and also it's a good thing to look at as a warning sign, and to learn from. And before we dive into it too far, Tyler, I want to say that this is a really tragic story. It's really sad, and although I was a part of filming it and being a part of it, after I watched it, I just had a sick feeling in my stomach. I told my wife, I'm like, I feel like I need to go take a shower. Like, it just is a little bit disgusting, and not a little bit, it's a lot bit disgusting, with the way it went down and what happened to that family. And I do got to say, it's good to see the two older kids that they interviewed, how I think they're resilient. I think they're strong. I think they're going to be okay. But yeah, we're not. I'm not trying to get anything out of talking about Ruby Franke. What I want to say is that why I do want to talk about it is because I think we can learn some things from it. Yeah. And the extremes of the situation and what happened, Tyler, happen in not such extreme examples all the time in the work that we do. And so
I think that's why you want to bring this up, Brannon, is like you said, it's not like, I mean, for the love of Pete, their whole family has been run through the mud enough. It's not really about their family per se, as some of the other things that you wanted to talk about that actually would maybe apply to people who listen to us. Many people who listen to us are living in a similar, almost parallel kind of a world, and they're going to run into some of the same things that we talk about today. And this is less about Ruby and more about the process that led to the story.
Yes, that's a great point, Tyler. That where it went with this family obviously got off the rails, and it got crazy and all kinds of stuff. But the underpinnings of it is really important, I think, to look at. And so I do have a few bullet points that I'd like to touch on, and all of these things I think relate to some tendencies that a lot of people have. Not everybody, but a lot of people have. So I want to start with Kevin. So Kevin's the dad. And he's featured on the documentary. He's probably the main person. And the producer told me that this documentary is about giving him a chance to share his story and what happened and explain how it all went down. But quickly as you watch it, you can tell that he is a man who lacks an understanding of self, and a man who lacks healthy masculinity, and a man who is extremely codependent to his wife, and extremely weak. And you watch it progress, and it gets to the point where he's like a puppy dog with his tail between his legs, going off to this hole that he's living in, because he's just trying to do the right thing because he wants to save his marriage. And his wife and this crazy therapist, Jody, are telling him that this is what he needs to do to save his marriage. Like, where is his truth? Where is any bit of like, this is what works for me and this is what doesn't? And his entire truth was, I want to do what will make Ruby happy. And it shows, Tyler, at the beginning where he goes into her closet. So she's like dating a bunch of guys, right? And he's hanging out with her. He goes into her closet, and she has a list of what I want in my eternal companion. And it's this big long list. And he somehow copies it or takes a mental note and gets this list and decides, I'm going to become that, so she wants to marry me. And right from the get-go, you can see he is not going to be him. He's going to be a figment of what she wants. And we deal with this all the time. where the definition of self runs through a filter of the wife needing them to be a certain thing, right?
Yeah, Brannon, and I think something that in our line of work we run into a lot, and this is hard because there's like dialectics in it a little bit, is typically what we get in our office is there's been some kind of a breach of trust, a betrayal, some kind of infidelity or something like that. And naturally, in order to want to repair the relationship, there has to be some level of reparation, which includes accountability and remorse and desire to want to change certain behaviors. And a lot of times, and this is where the dialectic comes in, is it's like there's a balancing act between putting yourself in a one down position and staying there for eternity in order to pay penance versus actually working through a process which says, oops, I've been messing up. I got to figure my crap out. And yet I still want to be in a relationship where we are equal partners instead of a one up, one down relationship. And if you're, if you've gone and done something that hurts somebody so deeply, part of the remorse, part of it can easily sort of fuel and expand whatever levels of codependency there might be in the relationship.
Yeah, I think that, I do not believe that you have to put yourself in that one down position to make right what you've done.
No, but it happens in treatment all the time, Brannon. Like a guy comes in, especially if he's not humble, and the therapist is like, "Dude, do you realize what you've done? Like, you gotta, humble yourself and soften your heart." And and a lot of times, a guy who's not very shame resilient, he hears, "Beat yourself up, play small, do whatever you're told, because that's how you're going to fix everything."
Right, and that at first, that never actually leads to trust.
So not long term.
Yeah, it doesn't. And so, like, Tyler, I hear you. I think there's two different things that you're talking about. One is accountability and honesty and, owning it. Like, yeah, like I messed up.
Humility.
Yeah. But that humility is not weakness. Humility is not, let me give you my masculinity, wife, so that I can show you that I'm sorry. That now, what happens to a broken feminine is like, okay, I'll take it because then I feel powerful and I feel in control. And this is where Jody, and she would do this to couples.
And you're saying Jody is the therapist who was working with this couple, right? So people who haven't watched the documentary, that's Jody was the therapist working with this couple where everything went off the rails.
Yeah. And I talked about Jody before, but this is right where Jody would step in to, there's this part of it when everything's kind of broken in terms of the polarity in the relationship and the lack of strength from the masculine, where there's something about, let me empower you right now to take full control of this situation because you're not safe with him because he's so weak. And that's right where Jody knew how to hit that button so well with people. She just hit it. And what would happen is the very opposite of getting better is now the man needs to become even weaker to hang in the relationship, to stay in there with the relationship and do whatever, or else these big, in quotation marks, boundaries would come that would ultimately start to split the family apart. And so you see Kevin, like he actually was so compliant, like so compliant. He wasn't like from what I could tell, he wasn't like about confrontation. And so I actually do believe him that he legitimately thought the best thing to like fight for his family was to not have contact with his family for over a year. Now, to the world, you watch that and you're like, you have got to be kidding me. Like, you really didn't know your kids were down in St. George getting like horrifically abused? You had no idea. And I do think is he like, I do think there's some accountability there on his part, but his problem was he was so weak that he didn't step up sooner. Right. So anyways, when we talk to men, Tyler, and we hear that codependency of like, well, I just want her to like me. I just want her to have sex with me. I just want to be a good boy. I just want to do the right things. I just want to make sure, the reason why that, like, we go after that is why.
Well, for everything you just described, is that it actually doesn't help rebuild trust in the long run, and in fact, it actually damages the relationship because it's still being built off of a facade instead of the reality of two authentic people deciding to be together.
Right. and to Kevin, the thing about Kevin is, like, he did have a therapist with a strong voice come in and say, this is how you do it. This is what you do. And I think that the lesson here to learn is, I don't care what letters you have behind your name. I don't care what kind of pastor you are, what kind of person you are. My filter of truth goes between me and God first and foremost. Yeah. And it's not that I won't trust people. Like you and I, Tyler, we've hired a coach, and like, we're all about like listening. But if that coach told me like, hey, you need to go do this crazy thing, I'd stop for a minute and go, I don't know. I'm not going to do that. That doesn't work for me. Right.
Yeah. There's Brannon, on this principle really quickly before you move on to your next bullet point, I have some empathy for everyone in the situation. You've seen like the studies, all the famous studies, like the Milgram studies or the Line study of, having people come in and do the shock machine, and it shows how they're dialing up the shock, and at 70% of people, if there was a person with a white lab coat in that looked like a doctor saying you must continue the study, they would go until they delivered what they thought was a shock that was fatal to the person on the other side of the room. And, the Line study is having people in front of you that are all doing the exact same thing. 66% of people will betray their own truth in order to conform to what the rest of the group says, because there's such a pressure socially to conform, especially when there's some kind of an authority in place.
Yeah.
And what you're saying, Brannon, I one of the things that I was thinking about in our line of work, and this is something that I try to be very careful with, I hope that my clients all know this, is that whatever my opinions are, they are only opinions that have to be run through your filter of truth. And that have to be, in my case, it's like a wrestle with God. Okay, God, I'm getting all this data from everyone, including my therapist. What's true for me?
Right.
And one of the best things that I get sometimes is when I give some advice and somebody walks away and they come back and they're like, hey, I really thought about this. And I think this part maybe you were right on, but this part I don't agree with at all. It's like, hallelujah. Like, right. But just thinking about that, Brannon, you have this. You've got super fans right now. That's going a little far, but
well, you do.
Yeah. You are now even a bigger celebrity than you already were.
Oh yeah, I'm huge.
So, but you could. There are people in your life right now that you have influence with that if you told them to go do something totally nuts, and you said this will help you, this will make you better, they would go do it.
Right, and that's true, Tyler. And I, just like you, I tell them, look, I speak words. A lot of it's coming through my filter. You need to really learn how to ground yourself, trust yourself, and know yourself so that you can make the decisions moving forward. And, I am not God. I am not the one that can tell you exactly what you're going to create in your life. But someone like Jody is the opposite of that.
She actually established herself as the authority and then basically shamed you if you didn't follow through on what was said.
Yeah. She wanted power. She wanted that. And so she would take it if you would give it to her. And that's the key, is if you would give it to her. When I was working there, I saw people come in and they'd start in with the therapeutic process with her and they'd be like, holy shit, like, get me out of here. Like, what? Like, this is nuts. Like, I'm not adhering to this.
Yeah.
And then I saw others, and usually it was Mr. Nice Guys, and and actually women who were really lost, who just drank it in. Like, okay, you're giving me all the answers. I'll do exactly what you say. And even though I would hope deep down in their gut, they were kind of like, this is nuts. Like, well, this is crazy. They still went along with it. And they didn't listen to that intuition inside of them saying, this isn't good. And she was really deceptive. She was really good at it. Another interesting thing is you look at her personal life and you look what's going on with her and who she is as a human being, and it's not so good. So her words are one thing, and she's like beating this drum and this and that. But then, like, who's the messenger? I think that actually matters. Who is the messenger? What kind of energy is coming from that messenger? And if you can't tune into that, you're disconnected and you're just in your shame. And then she's going to take that message and get her power.
Well, that's what the shame does, is it disconnects. And then when you're in that spot, you're looking for any answer you can find.
Yeah. I want to tell a story about my wife. We went to this training years ago, and it was this kind of like impact training thing. Do you know what impact training is?
Oh yeah. I'm familiar with impact training.
And it was a little off base. It was a little like the guy running it, like you could just feel how unhealthy he was. And like, they were trying to break us down in all these different ways, like just get in our face and break us down. And we had to get in someone's eyes and look him in the eye and give him feedback. Like, you're supposed to give him real feedback. And so,
but in like a bad energy kind of a way.
Oh, in a like, you just tear them to pieces way. And Jenny gets in front of this like sweet woman who had been through so much trauma in her life. And Jenny gets some tears in her eyes, and she's like, you're a powerful human being. And God loves you so much. And right then this facilitator gets in Jenny's face and is like, don't tell her that. You know, like, you're supposed to give her feedback. You're not helping her, blah, 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 blah.
Drill sergeant.
Yeah. And Jenny turns to him and gets in his face and is like, you don't tell me that I can't say that to her. Like, how dare you? I'm telling her who she really is. And I was like so proud of my wife, because that dude had worked so hard to get groupthink going of everybody tearing everyone down. And she was like, hell no, we're not doing that here. And I share that example because it's really hard when an authority is there. It's really hard when somebody with a loud voice is saying this is the way that it is. But Tyler, that's how wars start. That's how cults like start and do horrific things, is nobody stands up and says, what? This isn't okay. Right? So, okay. I want to move on to a couple other things.
Okay.
So, one thing about it, and you can kind of pick up on it in the story, is this whole thing about righteousness, and there's this otherness to it of like, we are doing the right thing despite how the world responds to it. It's like when she made her son sleep on a beanbag for 7 months and he didn't have a bed. Instead of like saying, yeah, that probably wasn't great, she gets indignant and she's like, well, yeah, of course you don't understand. I'm fighting for truth. We're fighting for truth. And the more we fight for truth, the more resistance we're going to get. And so it's like this righteous, it's this prideful thing masked in righteousness that happens. And what it does is it justifies the behaviors. And this is what happened when they started really abusing the younger children. It justifies those behaviors because they have twisted it to think that they are actually fighting for God's truths. And I think you got to be really careful with that. And really check out why you're doing what you're doing, but you can feel the pride in them when they're talking about the things that they're doing.
Yeah. So Brannon, this is tricky because, I think you look at like we could probably have our listeners look at specific relationships they have right now where they're at odds with somebody, and both parties would be able to claim the moral high ground of being righteous,
Right.
and yet they're at odds with each other.
Right.
So how
So what is righteousness?
yeah, so I guess that's the question. How do you guard against that? So even like right now, I'm thinking of myself, Brandon. Like I spent pretty much the vast majority of my career at odds with a pornography industry that I consider as truly evil. I take pride in being engaged in a battle where I'm on the minority and I'm going to get my butt kicked, but it's still worth fighting because of how passionate I feel about that. So how do I guard myself from being overly morally righteous to the point of actually being wrong?
Well, I think that's actually a great example and a great question. And I think, I think the answer to that is really to be genuinely humble, genuinely like searching for truth and what that is without any agenda for power or purpose or whatever it is. Like, okay, like if I really am checking in with myself and if I really am like asking these questions in a humble way, I believe you'll get the answers of what the righteousness is or the truth is.
So you go ahead.
If you're just on a crusade because you're on a crusade and you get all these things from it, whatever it is, you better check yourself a little bit. Like what is my motives here? Right.
So you run the risk of it being a false sense of righteousness if there is some kind of you at least need to check in on it if there's some kind of ulterior motive for either power or temporal gain or something else versus basic true principles. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's kind of like if you think about Ruby, everything was masked in. We're doing this to show the world. So her 8 passengers thing. We're doing this to show the world what a good family is. We're doing this to show the world what a good mother is, and also like do some missionary work and help the world. And in the meantime, the only thing we have to do is exploit our children and force them in front of a camera all the time so that we can make a lot of money. But, oh, by the way, we're doing all this good. And I'm not saying that you can't make a lot of money and do good at the same time. I totally know that you can. But was she really honest with herself? Was she really honest about her motives? And some of the clips that they show, it's like, no, you can see her motives. You can see that the priority, it was more important of how they looked in front of the camera than what was actually going on with her children. Right.
Like, so it was maybe what felt like loss of touch with what was truly the stated goal, which was have an amazing family. But that in some ways almost became the peripheral goal because of the pressure that was there to perform, to produce, to whatever else.
I think I think it took over. And Kevin talks about this when he's like, yeah, we made 8,000, then we made 20, then we made $100,000 in a month. And he's like, and I wanted more. And it's interesting to hear that because it's like the kind of the money and the fame of it started to take over. He used to say things like she was America's mom. And I'm like, no, that's a little far. Like, I don't know if she was that famous, but, like they show this clip of her on Mother's Day and it's like, look at her. She is the mother of and it makes you gag a little bit. And yeah, like what really, like why were they called to do that channel? And were they actually called by God to do that channel? Because they sure touted, or Ruby especially sure touted that it was all about God driving her to do that. Right. But hindsight, you look at it and you're like, really? Like, I don't know about that. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's a sticky one, Brannon. And I think what I'm hearing you say is at least at a minimum, working really hard to cultivate humility and curiosity and a willingness to be wrong would help to mitigate getting stuck in that pattern of what might be a false sense of righteousness.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know. I mean, this is just me kind of my opinions, but I felt like there was some I'll go as far to say scrupulosity there with Ruby of needing to be good, needing to look good, needing to be righteous, needing to be the perfect this,
Like an
the
obsession,
perfect
a little bit of
that.
an obsession. Yeah.
And so when Jody comes along and is like, this is how you do it. This is what right is. Don't be in distortion. This is what truth is. For heaven's sakes, they called themselves moms of truth. And so when Jody came along with the full playbook of how you be the perfect righteous mother, Ruby was like, oh, good. Like, okay, let's do this. Let's do that. And so I think her anxiety and her fear led her into a trap. And she probably thought that it was like good in many ways. Obviously she did. So
do you think, and I don't know, maybe you're going here with your next point, Brannon, but do you think on the other side of things, I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of Jody, the therapist, do you think that she was willful in taking advantage of people like that? Or do you think she was honestly believing that she was doing the right things and helping people?
I don't honestly, Tyler, like I rarely meet a human being that I believe is evil. But I think she was absolutely willful, and she was trying to get power, money, fame, and sex out of it. She was exploiting it to get those things. And knowing Jody, that's exactly how she is. It's all about the money. It's all about the notoriety. And so, yeah, I think when she got Ruby in her trap, it was like, this is the best thing ever. Like, this is awesome. I'm going to take this as far as I possibly can. And that's what she did. She took it as far as she possibly could. And that's where it ended up. But I don't believe it's so ironic because Jody's whole shtick is about truth and this and that and all these things. I don't believe that she actually felt like she was fighting for truth deep down. I think she had other agendas.
Gotcha.
But I don't know. Who am I to say? Right?
Yeah.
So, but that's kind of what she promoted was I'm this warrior for truth who's going to tell you, what is. So, one thing that I wanted to mention, and it's in the documentary, but I wanted to bring it up, especially for our audience, is it's subtly there, but I definitely picked up on it and I saw it. They actually show video of Kevin in his groups, which is kind of crazy. They blur out the guys, but you can hear her talking and giving feedback and this and that. And a lot of times she's talking about lust. And they also talk about Chad, and that Chad's the oldest son, and how he was looking at porn and lusting and making out with his girlfriend and stuff, and how that they just came down hard on that, and he needed to be more pure, chaste, perfect in that way. And what you could see is how Jody would use that sexual shame and that constant guilt to gain power over people. She would act as if she was helping them overcome something, but in reality she was trapping them even more with the shame around who they are, and using things like lust that, like, you see it with Kevin. At first he's this like hero in the group, and he's like helping other men, and Jody's just like, you're awesome. And then all of a sudden she starts telling him what a lustful, horrible, awful person he is, and he starts to believe that. And same thing with Chad. Like, he's a teenage kid, he's bumping along, and then all of a sudden, like, we get into the righteousness around your sexuality, and now Chad needs to meet with her twice a week. What do you know? So I think you just got to be careful around that. It's fine to deal with compulsive behaviors. It's fine to avoid harmful behaviors that harm your life. That's fine. But it doesn't have to be this steeped in control and shame in order to control those things. In fact, you have to have compassion and self-love and self-acceptance in order to be a person who is in control.
To overcome the compulsion. So yeah, Brannon, a different way of saying that, we talk about this a lot in our podcast about, like, are you too focused on only sobriety? And part of what you're saying here is that when people go into a setting like this, they come in because they have a behavior that's causing problems and they want help with the behavior. And if you only look at the behavior without looking at the roots underneath the behavior, then one way to behaviorally modify that behavior is to punish it, right? So if you punish it, but you don't understand that the roots behind it are the shame, then what you're doing is reinforcing the sexual shame that's driving the behavior in the first place. And I don't know a single person who they might have been able to get sober off of it, but they haven't gotten better off of it to overcome their sexual shame by heaping upon themselves more sexual shame.
Yeah, exactly. But Tyler, I've seen a lot of therapists make a lot of money by beating that drum.
Well, it's because they're focused on stopping the bad behavior rather than attending to the person's heart and soul.
Yep. But what it does is think about it, to that client, it's like, oh, I am struggling. Oh, I am bad. I better get more therapy. I better get more help. And then you go to the therapist in the therapy and they're like, you're horrible. Well, they don't say that maybe, but they do. Like, you're lustful, and then it shows it in the documentary. Jody said something to Kevin that was like, where does she get off saying that to him? But when you go to a therapist who's just kind of feeding that narrative, then it's like, well, yeah, I guess I got to keep working. And so you pay for more therapy and you don't get better, you get worse, and until you end up in your own townhouse separated from your family. Right. So Tyler, I really want to put the Jody thing to rest. And I gotta say, like,
so people who don't know, Brannon, like, you basically, the first job you had out of graduate school, you were trained by her. Like, she was your employer, right?
Yeah, and honestly, I was only there 6 months, and I picked up quickly that something was broken, but it was an opportunity for me to kind of see what a private practice was and see what people were coming in for therapy. I was only there 6 months, but that's not the end of the story that I have with Jody. And this is why I continue to talk about it. For years in my own practice, I would get clients who had been to Jody, and they would come over indoctrinated and just really hard to get to in terms of just being open to things. And so for a lot of years, I knew Jody was damaging people, and I felt pretty helpless. And when she got her licensed, put on probation, I was hoping that they would have come down on her harder, because I wanted them to shut her down. And she just got put on probation, and she's a workhorse, and she just kept going and going and going. And even my neighbors, like people around my community were like, oh yeah, I go to this Jody lady. She's amazing. And they were referring other neighbors to her. And I'm like, guys, like, what? Like, stop. Like, what are you doing? And she would chew them up and spit them out. And this happened for years and years and years. And so, the day that she got arrested, it was this big relief from me. Like, hallelujah, good. Like, take her out of here because she's destroying so many people's lives. I was talking to a realtor the other day, and he's like, yeah, my neighbor went to her, and just like, he's the best guy, but like, man, that like her family just got ravished, just destroyed. So yeah, I want to put it to rest. Jody's in prison now. The documentary came out. There's a lot to learn from it, I think. There's a lot.
Why did you choose to, when these people approached you, Brannon? I don't even know how they found you. Why did you choose to go on the show?
I felt like it was an opportunity to give a bigger picture of what happened and to understand what happened. And I actually think the documentary, and especially my role in the documentary, I was able to do that. And so I don't regret it at all. I know it was made for entertainment purposes, but I think telling the story is helpful. And I do think, especially for the kids in the family, the two oldest, I think it's helpful for them to be able to tell their story too. And so I was happy to be a part of that. So yeah, it's been an interesting experience for sure. So
yeah.
Thanks for letting me process it, talk about it today, Tyler.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I know it's a big topic right now in our world. It's a big topic with not even extends our little world that we operate in most of the time. And, you know, in some ways doing this episode might be as much for our listeners to have a few principles to think about in their own pursuit of help, as it is for you just to have another place to decompress it yourself, because I'm sure there's been a lot of emotion flowing through you this week too.
Oh.
So
thanks, Tyler. And you guys, if you're looking for good help, therapists that won't do what Jody did, therapists that don't have the agendas, go to Tyler. He's the man. Go to Love Strong.
Hey, Brannon, what's funny about all of this is the way that we were trained. And again, here I am being on my own moral high ground, but I feel like, but for the grace of God, there go I. You know, a lot of the ways that we were traditionally trained align themselves with a lot of the things that Jody was doing.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And so,
yeah.
So in a certain sense,
it took me a while to get out of it.
Yeah, there's been a continuing, and there probably will be a continuing transformation in both you and me as we go through trying to become better at what we do and trying to grow into our own full authentic selves as like anybody else, and things will change. And I look back at certain forks in the road in my own development as a therapist and think, man, like
you could have gone
a couple of different steps. You know, if we're honest, like we're all human. And so anyway,
that's a good point. So and I'd like to hope that we're in a good place right now.
I hope so. I feel like what we're seeing in people's lives is good stuff. So I feel like we're on the right track.
Yeah. Well, you guys, thank you for listening. And until next time, keep on keeping on.